Don Demetrius is here. He's the former chief of the Watersheds Evaluation Branch. He's one of these guys behind the scenes that when the storms are on the way, he's doing the math on the napkin to figure out how big it's going to be and where the water is going to be going. So he's been a big part of stormwater response in this area for many years. Congressman Jim Moran is here. The District Supervisor Jeff McKay is here. Karen Corbett Sanders, she's a school board rep, she's here. Johnny Gagnon, the District EQUAC. We have Virginia Congressman Adam Evan. He says Mark Sickles wishes he could be here today, but he was unable to attend. He's a big supporter of the community here. I'd like to thank all of our fire and rescue and police who are here today. Lieutenant Camille Stewart is she's representing the Mount Vernon District Police Station. Then you saw PennDOT Fire Station 411's big rig out there. And an emergencies EMS crew from 406. Then from the project team here we have Amir Davis. He was here late last night getting this Craig Princey, Stormwater Planning Division Director. Chris Smith and Amin, who are the construction managers here. Wayne Welsh from Arcadis is here. And if you're from Archer Western, raise your hand. Construction contractors. Where's James Pattison? Former public works director. There he is. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mount Vernon District Supervisor Dan Stork.
Thank you, Matthew. We are here to celebrate. This is a long time coming and something that anybody who's lived in this community for even more than a few years recognizes that it's a day that we, at least for those of us who've been around a long time, weren't sure was ever going to come. We weren't sure about that. And I'm here to thank specifically one individual. He's going to give a chance to talk, but Jerry Highland is the man of the hour. He saw what needed to be done. He talked to his colleagues. Maybe he twisted a few arms. I don't know. Didn't have to. And they brought this thing home. So he's going to obviously give us the history. I don't have as much of the history as he does. My role in this started about 3 years ago when we got the shovels and we actually started digging in the ground and started this process. But this is really the result of the people of Fairfax County deciding that something bad should be made better. And they stepped up. Sharon Cooley led the board in making this happen, and she'll we'll talk about that as well. But this is about people making a difference for communities, and those two individuals in particular, and the board overall, were huge in that process. There's one other individual I want to make sure gets recognized, and I want to invite him up here to speak for a minute as well. Actually, there's two other individuals. One of them is Jim Moran. Jim, our former congressman. Jim, come on up here.
Stan. Thank you very much. I will never forget when this community was flooded and Frank soaked rugs out from basements and appliances and furniture that the family had lived with and lived on, and it was no longer usable. It couldn't continue that way. And yet, it was only about 5 or 6 dozen families, and in the scope of a large county with 1 million people. Is it almost 2 million now? I know it's about 1 million now. But, and in fact, we couldn't get the kind of cost-benefit numbers that we needed originally for the federal money. So it had to be a community initiative. And the community went to bat with a man out in front. That was Jerry Highland, and he took it upon himself to sell it to his colleagues on the county board, to sell it throughout the entire county of Fairfax, and for these several dozen homes, the whole county of Fairfax voted overwhelmingly to put the money into this project. And when Fairfax does something, they do it right. I mean, this is not, some ramshackle place. This is like a national standard for the flood mitigation. People are going to come here and see how Fairfax did. Well, this is the way we should do it.
Have a dream, and that dream for Mount Vernon District was really, the torch was lit by Jerry, and a lot of the groundwork, literally the groundwork to build the basic infrastructure was started by Jerry. This is a great example of that. We have things on Richmond Highway that are also examples of that. But we also have a lot of other new things that we've been doing. The $40 million investment here was a key part of that. The flooding, we know, had to be addressed. But out of this same development, we also got a couple of beautiful community parks. And for those of you who haven't had your children over there, please do. They're filled with laughter and a few tears if you go down the slide wrong. But if you're part of the community, you recognize those are the sounds of renewal, the sounds of regrowth, the sounds of a community coming back alive in so many, many, many ways. We also have a trail that this will connect up and down the highway here, which up and down the roadway from Telegraph. Ultimately, we want to make that over to Richmond Highway, and ultimately we want to connect that over to the bridge, to Maryland and D.C. We have the opportunity to do that. The trail, that is truly a vision that I'm working on and sharing. Riverside Apartments has bought into that, and they're going to connect those in their part of their development. I've talked to Oarsmen about connecting at their end of it, and they've been very supportive of trying to do that. So then we have just really one major piece, which is VDOT, and trying to get underneath the highway, so underneath Route 1. So we do see this continuum of connections that will happen all along this area. One of the key parts of these other developments that we've got going on is Richmond Highway. I have to mention that a little bit because I have an amazing partner, and we have had an amazing partner for more than a decade in Mount Vernon District, the Lee District, and Jeff McKay. And Jeff, would you please come on up and
Thank you very much, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. And let me echo what Congressman Moran said a few minutes ago. We wouldn't be here today celebrating this if it weren't for Jerry Highland, somebody that I had a great opportunity to serve on the board with for a lot of years, and someone who, and Jerry and I have had this conversation before, cost-benefit analysis, sometimes that's not the marker. Sometimes the marker is just doing the right thing for the people you represent, and this project is a classic example of that. So congratulations, Jerry. Job well done for Dan. as he mentioned, we're great partners in South County. And what makes me particularly proud standing here is that this also proves that when you make investments, particularly in our older communities that need this kind of investment, you can improve the entire county. And this should be our focus area moving forward. I also want to congratulate our Fairfax County team. And when I say team, it means the community who was involved from day one, our Department of Public Works staff, our fire and rescue, police, who unfortunately had to play a major role in bringing this community back, the contractors who worked on this project, your elected officials. When our Team Fairfax, comes together, great things happen. And so everyone in this room should applaud. Lastly, I will tell you, Jerry said, he didn't have to work very hard to get the board on board with this project, and I think most of us found instinctively this was the right thing to do, but of course it wasn't as easy as that. And I think when this concept first came up, there were some people on the board who said, Jerry, are you out of your mind? And when you say, Jerry, are you out of your mind? Normally later that means Jerry got his way, because he wasn't out of his mind, he was in his mind, which is we're going to protect the Huntington community, and we're going to continue to do that in Fairfax County. So thank you very much.
For almost 32 years, I think you have to go to the end of this year to get your 32 year. End of this year, and most of you know that Sharon has decided she's not going to run again for chair, and she has spent, again, really the better part of her youth. She still has a little bit of that left, maybe, but most of her youth has been spent taking care of the community and making a difference for all of us. And so I want to, frankly, recognize Sharon for all of her work, and please ask her to come up and say a few words for us. So thank you, Sharon.
Differential here in Major. So I previously served, before I was chairman, as the Braddock District Supervisor in the middle of the county. And I remember watching on the news, watching television, and reading in the paper about the flooding in Huntington, the flooding in this area. And I remember thinking, isn't that awful? It's just terrible, those poor people. And then when I was elected chairman in 2009, it wasn't just observing something that was happening in another district, because then I had some responsibility, and I too represented the Mount Vernon and the Lee districts. And so I remember the first time that we had a major flood and coming out, and there was Jerry just slugging it out and helping people, moving furniture, helping people to deal with the flooding in their homes, and it was just heartbreaking. It was just awful. The answer to that is, as Jim has just indicated, we were not going to be saved by the federal government. And Jim, thank you for your honesty, because you helped to provide, honesty and the truth. We needed to look at ourselves, and so all of us, the community, together with Fairfax County, was faced with trying to figure out a way to resolve and to design something, and then the hard part was to figure out how to pay for it. My recollection is that the bond referendum was, I think it was $30 million. It was not a unanimous vote on the Board of Supervisors. And there were some folks who even, I think it was one person, who even actually sort of campaigned against the bond referendum. Because they thought that it'll never pass. I think that bond referendum says something about Fairfax County. It says something about the people of Fairfax County. We put a bond referendum to the voters for $30 million, and it was for one very small part of Fairfax County. And Fairfax County, throughout our large county, voted for that bond referendum. They cared. People cared about each other and were willing to pay out of their tax dollars to make sure that we were providing safety and that we were taking care of all parts of our community. And I think that that says something about Fairfax County. It says something about the people we are, about the community we are. That bond referendum that year sailed through. It passed by the largest margin of anything else that was on the ballot. And that says something. Says something wonderful about the community. So I am... As I'm retiring, people ask me about, what I've enjoyed about serving as chairman and actually serving on the Board of Supervisors, and I answer that it is the community that I represent. It's the engagement. It's the willingness of people to roll up their sleeves and to work together for our staff, our county staff, working together with the community partners. It's not them and you and us. It's everybody working together to make things happen. So I would just like to say congratulations. This is a fantastic day. Not only do we have a levee that is going to provide safety, folks will be able to sleep through a rainy night once again and not have the concerns that you're going to wake up in the middle of the night and have to start moving furniture. But not only that, but we have a community amenity here. This is beautiful. Walking trails and playgrounds. This levee has been transformational in so many ways for the community. So congratulations to everyone. This is a great day. Wonderful, wonderful project. Wonderful, wonderful community. Wonderful, wonderful staff and county and elected officials who made that happen. Congratulations, everyone.
The last several days I've been in Portland, Oregon. I sit on a board of an organization called Generations United, whose mission is to bring seniors, old folks like yours truly, and young people, grandfamilies and grandparents. We had a wonderful conference of 350 people. But I red-eyed it back because there isn't any way that I wouldn't be here to share this incredible event and everything that's been said, particularly as far as Fairfax County and how Fairfax County responded is true. I spent, as your supervisor, an awful lot of evenings and mornings traveling not very far from my home to Fenwick and coming down to the end of the road where the tide, where the water always came up, just to see how high it had come up and to see whether or not we were going to be threatened in this community. More often than not, when I went down there, I had someone from Public Works sitting there in their white truck, also looking out for this community. And when we had floods, the community responded, Fairfax responded with Shirley Short. She's my angel who helped me and everyone else to serve this community. Just a marvelous, marvelous. But the story that I wanted to share with you, and again, it's we have public servants and we have public servants and we have people in public service. But when the last flood occurred, I received a call from a young man, Steve Atchison, and James, you know him very well, was a constituent of mine. His dad was a dentist in my community. And he called me and said, Supervisor Highland, said, I found something here that I think you might be interested in. And I said, well, Steve, what? He said, well, I was digging around some old files, and I found a flood study of the Huntington community. Well, I was elected in '88, and come to find out, years earlier, Fairfax County had done a flood study in this community to determine what was necessary to protect this community from flooding. I did not know about that when I was elected supervisor. No one gave that to me, and he found it in an old file. I read it, and I'll be darned if we hadn't said years before, this community needs to be protected from water. Well, needless to say, that gave me some impetus and a reason to start taking that study, saying to our board, this is what we should have done years ago, and no matter why we didn't do it, now we need to do it. Now, he didn't have to give that study to me. He could have left it in the file. He could have said absolutely nothing, and we probably wouldn't be sitting here today if he had done that. And I just give Steve Atchison such great credit for doing the right thing as a public official, as an elected official, to share with his supervisor the facts and the truth. So that's the history in terms of sort of how we got here. Now, I didn't think getting it before the board was that difficult, because I had Sharon Bolivar there leading the board as our budget chair, and Sharon and the board. I'm so proud of our board and what they did in terms of putting this referendum to the voters. And you're absolutely right. The percentage of voters who voted for this, I think it was the highest percentage that year. It's in the 70s, if my memory serves me. And that's unheard of for Fairfax County. So for me to be standing here today with a solution to a problem this community needed to solve is just such a wonderful feeling, but also to have been part of an effort to help this community when they needed such help. People look at Fairfax County as being many things, many people, but let's be frank. This community is a community of lower to middle income people, and if people ask us what we do or what we've done to help and keep lower and middle income people in this community, one of the best examples that I can point to is what we did here to keep this community as whole. A lot of people just said, an awful lot of people said just bulldoze this community. You remember, Alan? You remember? Just knock it down, get rid of it. Don't worry about flooding in the future. That'll take care of the problem, and it would have taken care of the problem. And 165 families would no longer be part of Fairfax County. And that shouldn't happen. We shouldn't have even talked about it happening, and it won't happen because of this technical effort. So I was privileged to have the opportunity to be in a position of being able to help move this project forward. It wouldn't have happened but for a board of supervisors that was willing to step up to the plate. And it was a big step that the board took. It wasn't easy, because if you cost-benefit analysis, it just, Jim, as you said, it just isn't there. But keeping one person, one family, 165 families in Fairfax County was worth every single penny that was spent on this project. It was absolutely the right thing to do. So I thank you for those of you who put me in this position years ago to have a chance to, quote, do the right thing. I'm happy to not have to get up in the middle of the night and come down and check the flooding down there. And I guess my final words are to this community: let it rain, let it rain, let it rain. Thank you very much.
December as the Director of Public Works and Environmental Services. My goal in retirement was actually to become an urban farmer and raise chickens with Jerry. And I'm still waiting for that call, Jerry. I asked to come back. Actually, I asked the current director, Randy Bartlett. I said, hey, I want to come back and be a part of this ribbon cutting. This community and this project means a lot to me. in the mid-'80s. I was working in this community as part of the Community Development Block Grant Program, working on drainage projects in the community. During Hurricane Isabel, I worked on the community center during the 2003, 2006, 2011 floodings. I was down here. One of the things I distinctly remember, I think it was in 2006, later than 2011, is riding around with Jerry and Fire and Rescue's Gator and going up and down the streets in the community while Jerry knew everybody by name and would check in specifically with everybody. Are we doing the right thing? Are we really helping the community recover? And for me, this, especially as a civil engineer, this was just one of those perplexing, hard to solve questions, but something that needed to be done. So I'm really excited to see the levee. And not only getting the levee constructed, but I think we did it right for a lot of the reasons that other people talked about. You know, we conserved trees, we put the trails, building the connectivity. We didn't have to enclose the building, but we wanted to enclose the building so it'd be quiet and wouldn't disrupt the neighborhood. We have 100% backup emergency power. So really building the resiliency so the community can sleep much easier at night. And I even though some of these people have been mentioned already, I do want to thank several people again. Steve Atchison was on my list. So you talk about the person that's here in the white truck a lot in the middle of the night. Steve was a Groveton High School graduate, grew up not far from here, and he kind of took on it himself to really come out here and check on the community every time it rained. We were out here. Craig Carency, who's here. When you get those River Watch notices at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, it's Craig and it was Don, but it's his team that are running models, that are constantly watching rain gauges, that are trying to make sure that we're keeping the community safe. All of the Public Works team, Teresa Lepe, for the community, as you saw, for some reason, and we put our best project managers. This was a priority project for us. But every time we put a project manager on, their spouse would get a job somewhere else. We've lost a lot of project managers, but Teresa was a mainstay throughout the whole project to see it through. So Teresa and her whole team. You know, the community, and we do a lot of outreach to the community in all our projects, but I really appreciate in this instance, one, the community's patience. I remember our very first community meetings as we're starting this, we laid out that 2-year, actually a 4-year time, but I really appreciate the patience of the community as all the trucks came through, and the disturbance, it worked really well. And I think a key part to the community working really well was Alan Roof. We could not have had a better partner, and for the community, I know I'm saying something you guys already know, you couldn't have a better representative kind of advocating to make sure all the 1,000 little things get addressed. So Alan, I really appreciate working with you. The Park Authority, it's been mentioned, kind of relocating this Park Authority property, relocating the fields and working with us on the trails. Fire and Rescue, during the events, I see some of the Pinbelt folks, I think, are here, but coming out regularly. I know in some of those nights, we would be watching the rain gauges and watching the flood levels, and as it was approaching that 8-foot, 9-foot level, we're always looking, when do we have to pull the trigger to evacuate? And having the Office of Emergency Management, the Police Department, and Fire Rescue as a piece of that team was helpful. Arcadis, I know they were mentioned, but Wayne and his team for all the great work. Excellent architects. They've done levees up and down Mississippi, so they were a great team. And Archer Western, we had some drama or we had issues come up anytime you have a project this large, but the team of Arcadis, Baker, Gordon, and Archer Western really came together with the county to work through those issues, not stop the project, and keep it moving. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was a good partner. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dan, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and congratulations on a very beautiful project for the community.
I'd like to invite Arma Adams up to the podium here for a second. It's all yours.
I was wondering if Alan and Elaine could come up, please. And while they're coming up, I'll read this. The people and animals who live in the Huntington community want to thank Alan and Elaine for their untiring care and efforts in support of the Huntington Levee in Fairfax County, Virginia. 7 years ago, they gathered fellow residents and proposed the levee to the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. They've advised lawmakers, organized volunteers to get signatures for a bond on our ballots, helped neighbors with homeowner insurance paperwork, answered our questions, kept us informed, and helped residents when we had issues. They became our liaisons and ensured the community got what it has today. Not just a levee to preserve our homes, but a space for the community to congregate, observe wildlife, get outdoors, and conserve an important wetland. And so, June 15th, Huntington Community, thank you very much.
Thank you from Elaine, from me. It's a really emotional day, and I could not be happier to see so many people who came together to make this a success. Friends and neighbors and former neighbors and county staff was just incredible. I put them up against any team in the country. Wow, you guys did it right when you selected your contractors and consultants. You took your time. That was the right thing to do. Do it right the first time. If it takes a little longer, it's okay. I will tell you that what really strikes me is this community was a great community and people really liked each other and know each other, but there was always, after 2006 especially, a sense of despair. It's gone. The cloud is lifted. I can't start naming names because we'll be here until tomorrow, but just thank you everyone, and thank you Elaine, because we did a lot in a really short time, and it would have been easy to say, why are we doing this? It can't possibly succeed. There was never anything but undying belief from my wife and everybody else.
Jerry some too. Jerry talked about what Alan and Elaine had done that really preceded the bond, which is before you vote on something, you have to educate folks about it. And Alan and Elaine went around the county, meeting with different communities and talking with different other parts of the county to explain to them why this bond was needed, what difference it would make for the community, the commitment, the involvement, the engagement, the thousands of hours that took. Not only for that, but for all the things related to this, it's obviously well recognized for the time and effort, and the difference that you made is all around us. And I think more importantly, we'll be able to all enjoy that for the next many, many decades. And this truly has revitalized a community that had challenges that's been alluded to as we go along here. But this is a new day, and definitely that new day is looking pretty fine. So thank you again, Alan, Lane. I have one last folks I wanted to recognize, which is my staff who helped to bring this together. Particularly I want to thank Kamala Spear. Kamala is here somewhere. No? Kamala, thank you very much. And Sally Kadalov. Sally is, maybe she's out. Is Sally out there? So thank Sally. She's out there at the tent, so thank you, Sally. And last but not least, and she was recognized a little bit earlier by Jerry, but Shirley Short. Shirley is here. Shirley's our super volunteer. Thank you, Shirley, very much. With that, I think we're going to cut some ribbon here, folks. So.
Yeah, I would pull it up, so just going up beyond the gaze of the greenery in the back.